putting.
Yeah. We don't have what we need. If you burn wood, you'll have. Yeah.
Year after we built it.
Oh, yeah.
You can put it in.
Did he? Yeah.
Elections.
Okay, people, you're slacking. You gotta fill out a routine.
There are extra agendas over there too, if anyone wants an agenda. Right over there on the chair.
Pellet stoves in. Yeah.
Give it to him next, or whoever next. Would you like an agenda?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, hi, Mr. Clark.
You.
Hey there. You didn't sign, you know the rules, and you didn't sign.
I got two work orders now.
You go. Oh, no. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, I was noticing that.
Yeah,
I appreciate
so-
that.
Topic by topic.
We appreciate it.
Up to you.
So yeah, Shannon, telling your daughter will be there with my lady goats.
I'll let her know. She'll be excited.
Six oh four, I'll call it to order, with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And the roll call, Shannon Sturgis is here, Shannon Stanley, and Walter Goss, Rebecca Boynton, and Dave Griffin. Meeting minutes. We approved.
There is one correction, there's references to Shannon Sturgis in here and she was absent, so we just need to correct that.
There was another one too.
Yeah,
A word that was misspelled. On April 5th, 2023, second paragraph. Shannon Snowman has how, and it should be asked how often. Second or third violation is issued.
what page?
Page 3.
Okay. Are you scratching it, Ryan? Dual duties?
Yes, I will be, sorry, everyone, I'll be a little slow.
Okay.
to the gun tonight. So I also have to jot down notes. Sarah was not able to make it. So I will also reference that.
Take it easy on me.
Yeah.
We need a motion to approve the minutes with those corrections.
So move.
Second,
All those in favor? Vote. Now, we under new business, we have two applications to review tonight. Auto sales is first, and then 425 will be second. So what you know how we usually do things, we're gonna review we're gonna let the person do a presentation of what the project is about, and then we'll review the application. And then the audience will have a chance to question project, what's going on. So sit tight, you'll have your chance, okay? So Thai Auto Sales, is there a representative here?
Yeah,
You can come right up to the
Up to the
podium.
mic, give your name and where you're from.
yeah, Dan Poland, I'm from Green Main. And what basically is I wholesale vehicles. I buy them at auctions and I fix them up a little bit and then I bring them to the auction again. That's 90% of my business. I don't sell that much to the public, basically wholesale. So what it is, I've got to have what the state requires to keep a dealership and a license. You got to have 64 square feet of office space, which is 8 by 8, which I've got that building there. And you need 5,000 square feet of parking area, which is where Chuck had his, that square right there, up here on Marcel paper. So I'm not doing anything, I'm just using that area just for wholesale. There probably won't be hardly any cars yet, maybe 1 or 2. I do most of my repair at my house in Green. But that's residential, so I gotta have an area where I can, please the state more or less, and that's why I'm leasing this from Scott Pro. That's it.
Okay. Question for you, Ryan, this doesn't fall under recycling.
It does not. In our ordinance, it says that auto sales is either retail or wholesale, which is what he's doing. Auto recycling is more tearing cars apart, using the parts, like almost you see car sales for parts on the side of the road type of thing. That would be auto recycling. And we limit that to 5 cars, because we don't want 100 cars being parted out. But yeah, what he's doing is under our ordinance, it specifically calls out wholesale in the definitions of our land use ordinance.
these aren't cars that would have salvage titles on them, right, that you're picking up from the auctions.
Yeah, some of them have salvage.
Didn't we just do something with that with Brian where we had to approve something, I thought?
Yeah, and they could only have 4.
Yeah,
Yes. So will you be storing salvage vehicles there or?
No,
Okay,
so
so,
you said you probably won't even see any vehicle.
Right. so,
I
I mean,
when I get them at the auction, I repair them at my house,
right.
and then, like I said, I bring them to the auction right after. So
Okay.
you may never see a vehicle there.
Okay, so
Maybe
you're-
1 or 2 at the most
Okay.
in that big area.
and the ones you do display, are those gonna be basically fixed up cars that you brought? from
If
your
I
house?
display one, it'll have a sticker and it'll be ready to go to.
That's the important part.
Okay. Let's go through the application. Sections 1 through 5. Any comments on it? Appear complete.
Yep.
1. Section 6 through 10.
There's no abutting property owners.
Sorry, we had a whole list, there were too many to put on here. But yeah, I mean, we just didn't write it down here, I think there were 39.
Can we let's modify that just to say see attached list and then just provide like an Excel spreadsheet or something?
Sure.
That's on
6 or 7? 6? 7.
7. Oh, I see. Thank you.
I can put that in the record.
And he paid the cost.
Yeah, he did pay $8.10 per mailing.
And we'll fill that piece in as well, correct?
Yes, correct.
Thank you. I think that's the original one.
Yeah, 6 through 10. Nature of the projects as he described it.
And there's a plot plan in the packet there that shows the location of what he'll be doing and where the car display will be.
Okay. All right, Dave?
Yeah. Good. So far.
1 through 17. You're gonna be up by the road, right?
Yeah, it butts the trading post,
Yeah,
80 feet right there. I had the highway people up there too.
yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking, you've got it within 250 feet of a high water mark, which seems like it's further than that, isn't it?
Jesus, it's way up.
Yeah, that question says, is there a portion of the property? So if you look at your packets, I did include a flood zone panel and he's not within the 250 feet mark. I mean, he's probably 500 feet
Yeah,
away.
I would think.
But he's on the same parcel as, abuts the river. So there is some shoreline zoning on the parcel, just not where he's doing this,
Okay,
right? So it's kind of a minutia of that question, because the question doesn't ask, are you doing business within the shoreline zone? It asks if there's any part of the parcel.
method of infrastructure. Town, number of parking spaces, 7. We're proposed 7 plus.
This one does not have any construction attached to it, so a lot of the questions asked in the development review packet are not relevant because it's using existing buildings and existing infrastructure.
Proposed schedules get going this spring. Does the project require any approval licenses from the state agencies?
And that would be for his license from the state Bureau of Motor Vehicles.
Was this approved?
And he needs a conditional use permit from us
Yeah,
before
we
he
just
can
need
get that.
a zoning permit.
But yeah, he's all set to go to set for that.
Attach the following items to this application. Nothing's checked there, but I know we did some of that, didn't we?
Yeah, it's all attached. If you go on through your packet, he has a lease agreement. There's a plot plan of the location of his office and where the cars will be displayed. And then if you keep going, again, there's a firm panel. There's a letter from the DOT saying that he's good for entrance and exit.
Then there'll just be a sign that's 12 square feet, 3 by 4. That's what the state requires. So that's all I'm putting on.
Okay. Any questions from anyone? I'm gonna open it up to the audience now, if anyone would like to make comments. Go to the podium and state your name and address and.
My name's Susan. I've lived for 48 years at 12 Grove Street, right behind 30 Lewiston Street. I guess I didn't understand. Will cars be worked at this address, or is this just cars for sale?
I'll let you answer that.
Cars for sale.
Just cars for sale?
Yeah.
So you won't be working in that big garage?
No, that's Pine State's garage.
What's Pine State?
Pine State Waste, That big garage, big garage down
I'm
there.
talking about down here on Lewiston Street.
Yeah.
I live right behind the trailer area there. So that's where you want the auto sales? Is that right?
No, I'm right next to, the trading post.
Okay, so you're down, yes, I totally misunderstood.
Sorry, if you go down the road, it's on the corner to your right. There's a little red building.
Yes,
He'll be operating his office out of that, and then
okay,
pretty much right beside the road is the display vehicles.
okay, so it's not going to be right here on Lewiston Street where the trailer is.
It's gonna be right down here on Lewiston Street. on
Right,
the
yeah, on the right,
Yes,
but
correct.
not on the left.
No,
No.
Okay, then I guess I have no.
okay, all right, that we can clarify. That's what public input's for.
Makes sense.
Good luck to you, dear.
Thank you.
I'm all for small business. I've had a small business.
Mark Gary.
for 3 years.
I guess I'm not opposed to what you're doing, but what I'm gonna ask is. What about, this is all part of the same lot that we've been trying to ask him about cleaning up for years, ever since the fire. What's all the trailers down back? There's like 50, 75 cars down back. There's all the mobile homes down back, there's all the rubble down back. Well, where are we gonna stop this from all, this mess from coming? How are we gonna get this all together? Is there some stipulations we can put in this for the cleanup? So this gentleman can have something. It looks like a wreck you coming into town. You guys all go by it every day. It's a wreck. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask Ryan to answer that, because I think he can probably do a better job.
Yeah, so that's a couple part answer, but I'll try to answer the best I can. Essentially, when I got here, May of last year, there was an already drafted consent agreement between the property owner and the town. And the town required certain metrics, like, for example, it was either, fix up the building through engineered drawings or knock it down, and chose to knock it down. And then there was also stipulations, he had to meet like paying fines, and then part of that, the council agreed to let him store the mobile homes and trailers there. Most of the reason being is that it's a loading dock, and essentially there was past use on there to allow for trailers to be stored there for the mill. So there's some legal precedent with kind of grandfathered or past uses. So I guess that's why that was put in there. In terms of cleaning up, right now, the back building is being fixed up by a mason. So the building that's still standing is being fixed up as we speak. I was just out there about a week ago with the owner and a mason. In terms of, the rest of the trailers, I'm not sure what part of that is part of the recycling company that works out of there, which was just mentioned, or what part of that is still, what we're dealing with here. I was told that the rubble that still exists is going to be used as fill for essentially a land ramp from the top down to the bottom. But there is rubble. So, the planning board can set conditions if they'd like for approval around that. It's just really up to the planning board and what they want to do. But
Right, what about all the cars that are down there?
yeah, so that would be news to me. So, I don't know if that, again, I don't know if that's a part of the other use on the lot, or if it's the owner or who it is, but that would be something that probably would be a me thing in terms of enforcing.
Yeah, 'cause they don't have the approval to be a car dealership or to be a junkyard or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I understand. It's my understanding there are mobile homes being stored there, and we were dealing with the dangerous building ordinance that council signed off on, so, I'll say you have a point. So the car thing would be a separate enforcement issue on my part.
Yeah, I haven't seen those. I didn't know those were there.
Yeah.
I did drive down there one day, but I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I don't doubt you.
No, I've had a phone call.
Have you?
It's on my list.
Walter, when you go down that street and you're getting close to the old hotel and so forth, if you look to the right, this is a non-expert opinion, but it's all about what things look like. That's one of the ugliest gateways I've seen in a long time. It's just plain ugly. And if we have any control over that, I think we should talk about it. It's just not a welcoming sight. The whole lot back there is just ugly. And I don't know what we can do, but if there's anything we can do, we should take action, because it's an eyesore. I don't know what we can do. I mean, what are our options?
Yeah, so I think again, I didn't know about the cars per se before. You just mentioned it to me, I think, yesterday, and so it's well taken. It's not that, I'm blowing you off or anything. It's just, I didn't know about them like Walter didn't know about them like also, so. That's an enforcement issue on my part. In terms of the building, I mean, progress is being made on cleaning, and fixing up the back building. It's just kind of not the pace that we would like to see.
Right, no, you told me about that, but what about those trailers?
Yeah, so the trailers were part of the consent agreement and council agreed to allow him to continue that use as a part of that consent agreement.
Okay,
Did they allow the trailers to be up near the road, or do they need to be down back? Is there 3 or 4 of them?
Yeah, that's a part. So again, that's actually something that was brought to my attention the other day, and I reread the consent agreement. And it states that storage can be where it currently is. It never spells out a specific area. So I guess I'd answer that with a question of where was it before? I know as far as I've been here for the past year, I've always seen those there. So I don't know where they were before that.
Poorly written consent decree then.
Well,
Does this consent agreement have any type of time stipulations, like you can keep these trailers there, but only until X, Y, Z, or?
not the trailer portion. For knocking down the building there was, but he met that immediately. I think even before we signed the consent agreement, he had already knocked it down. So he was pretty quick on that. Part of it was fixing up the back building, which is the part we're waiting for, but he hit winter and you can't do masonry work when it's below freezing. So we kind of waited to the spring and agreed that if it didn't happen quick, that there would be more enforcement, but he's complying. So I can say with, at least with the areas that I'm concerned about, there's compliance. Now, there's the car issue now, but in terms of the rest of it, there's only so much we can do. That.
Now, I would like to do, like Dave says, be able to do something, but I'm not sure what impact Mr. Poland can have with this lease on getting stuff cleaned out.
I gotcha.
Anyone got suggestions or?
No, I would say that it might be two separate issues. There are always contingencies or extra remarks put into planning board approvals. So, I would say I can pursue enforcement individually on what I can. I mean, but again, I can only go so far.
Oh,
Can we limit the amount of trailers he has?
Based on the consent agreement, no. It only limits it to places that are where it currently is.
My understanding from the picture that I saw, there was only 3 separate spots that he had the trailers in.
Yeah.
And in those 3 spots, you can only put so many trailers.
Yes,
So in essence, you can limit him,
Yes.
because if you can only fit 15 trailers on that square footage, there's a limit of 15 trailers.
yes, and
Now, then it's gonna take some math, and I'm not saying I'm doing the math right.
yeah, and
But-
that's actually something, so there's an aerial, as part of the consent agreement, there's an aerial photo. And it shows where trailers are being stored, but when was that aerial photo taken? Recently, I mean, probably in the last 2 or 3 years, so I have that to go off of. And then my own personal knowledge of the site. So yes, actually, he's right, I can limit him to he can't do any new areas on the site. But in terms of the existing areas, no,
In the consent agreement, there was no limitation as to the number of trailers.
not number, but by location. Yes. So there are, if you go down into the left of the garage, there's storage there. I mean, I'm not sure whose that is. I'm not sure if it's the people working out, I think is it Pine Tree Waste? Working out of there, or if it's the owner of the parcel, but there are also trailers stored alongside when you immediately turn left along the tree line. Those have always been there. So, and I think there's a lot less issue with those. I think people's main issue is the ones really close to the road where it's not buffered.
Chairman, may I ask a question? being an old radio guy, I use a microphone, so I'm gonna use a microphone. Sir, I didn't catch your first name.
Dan Poland.
Dan? So my question is, because these folks are absolutely right, and I'm sure to anybody driving through town, I'm Vic Hodgkins, I'm the town manager. Anybody driving through town, you can't help but notice the unsightliness that those mobile homes are creating. So you say that you're going to lease part of that area to run your car sales, which is mostly wholesaling.
Right.
My question to you is this: is part of the area that you're going to lease, where is it where those mobile homes are today up front, or are you going to be on the other side just towards that red building?
Now it's gonna be, you know where the trading post is?
Mhm.
There's a row of trees right there. They're right there. And there's 80 feet from the road back that goes over 120 feet. That's all clear, nothing's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Over
the,
the bank and down, I believe, on the other side, it looks on the map like it's an easement of some sort. He's got 2 or 3 parked there, and when you drive to go down to Pine State, you've got like 5 right along the bank that goes in behind that.
Okay.
I don't know what that place.
I was hoping you were going to solve our problem for us by saying, yes,
Yeah, there's no way to get
that was the
that.
area I'm gonna lease, right?
Yeah,
I think I follow where you were going, get your trailers off my lease.
Yeah, and I just figured maybe his
Yeah.
issue would solve the problem, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so thank you.
Well, basically right where Chuck's down.
Is there, or is it an indefinite?
It's indefinite, but I think I can kind of play off of what everyone's saying now, and when you look at the site plan, it says car display. There could be a stipulation put in, that anywhere within that car display, there cannot be mobile homes or trailers also stored. Because that's actually relevant to this site plan. So if you look, again, look at the map, it says car display, office and sign. So I mean, if the planning board want to put a condition on that, you know, the first 60 feet, it looks like 60 feet of road frontage, no outside storage of trailers or mobile homes or anything likewise. Or nothing stored except for vehicles, right, as a part of the business. I think that would be a fair and legal condition. Now, in terms of messing with the rest of the parcel, I'm not sure how limited we are, but at the very least, that would be something that could be a condition.
Do you see any other way to put pressure on? I don't see that Mr. Poland can put pressure on. Anything else?
Are you asking me? or-
Yeah, no, I'm asking you as the town manager.
I guess where I fall with interactions with Mr. Ferland is that I do believe that obviously there have been and continue to be some issues. My interactions with Mr. Ferland is I do believe what he is seeking most, and I'm stretching a little bit, kind of speaking on his behalf, but I think it's fair to say he's looking to be a good neighbor, wants to do the right thing. Unfortunately, the kind of business he is in is really lending itself organically to this. It'd be nice if there was a wonderful restaurant and all that on there with overlooking the river, but that's not his style of business. And concerning the consent agreement, the mobile homes were a part of that. They were grandfathered in. And I do think that consent agreement, by the way, was sniffed out with our attorney. I do think that Ryan has an excellent point. The defining area where those mobile homes could be should have been better stated word-wise. It is my understanding, my personal understanding, that the mobile homes were supposed to be out of sight down back. That was my understanding. I concur and agree with all of you that having those mobile homes up front is very unsightly. I think that, whatever the town can do, and in Ryan, I trust, whatever the town can do, to take a step so that way he doesn't in the future store mobile homes up front, I think would be a good step to take. And, I don't know if, we've had any direct conversations with Mr. Ferlin concerning the unsightliness of those mobile homes and just ask him as a good neighbor to move them. That would be a step I think we should take as well. Because maybe he can find, there's what, 3 mobile homes there or something. If he can find someplace else on his property and be a good neighbor and not have to deal with all of the squawking, if you will, it seems to me quite reasonable that he might take that under advisement and consideration. But again, I'll leave all of that stuff to our code enforcement officer.
So with my, I guess we're learning here, we, if we're gonna put a condition, we have to be very specific. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to think this through, but if you look up here, it's in your packets, but also for the public and those of you that are online. Essentially, the car display area here is spelled out to be this, it looks like 60-foot back over here, and I think that's that sort of wide open area, up at the front, I believe it's paved. If you go over here, here's the office, right there, that little red building. I believe a fair and reasonable assumption is that essentially this is a part of the lease, this land area up here. I mean, the sign's right here. The office is gonna be back here and car display over here. So one condition we could put is no storage, no outside storage of trailers and mobile homes, or only storage of cars and customer parking in the first 60 feet, because I believe that measurement's 60 feet right there. So if you encompass that, it goes all the way around here, just in front of the office, if we're following the same scale. So I think that would prevent the mobile homes trailers being stored in the eye of the public.
But to what Vic was saying, like, and based off from your interactions with Mr. Ferlin, like, can we have just a conversation with him? Like, I hate to feel like we're forcing a hand if he's just, if we haven't even entertained that conversation to start, right?
Sure.
I feel like that's fair, and then, if we have to look at an alternative route, I feel like we could certainly do that. What are you guys' thoughts?
I agree with, it's always better to ask politely, and then if they bark at it, then you go after that. Do something different. What do you think, Dave?
Works for me, I mean, yeah.
Are these
And,
mobile homes being used for
make
anything, or
progress.
is it just storage?
Storage,
They're just being sat there.
correct.
There's no intention to sell them or
Well,
move them.
I can't speak for the use, but I know he owns a lot of mobile home parks, so I believe those are, he buys them, that he has no place to put them, so he puts them there. And then when he has an opening, he brings them over. So yeah, it's just storage.
Is that a conversation that you'd be
Sure,
able to have with him and then report back?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I can make that a part of my CEO updates next month.
Yeah, and with that conversation, if there is an agreement there, like, can we get a date, like a target date?
Sure.
Okay, so what do we do with Mr. Poland's application here?
I'm good.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah, go ahead.
Paul Webster. I have a question for Mr. Fuller. Is 75+ used cars down back, any of these to do with your business?
No,
They're not. Okay. And I have been down there within the past week, and there is either 11 or 12 mobile homes down in there. There you go.
Even with that discussion though, is there any way we can do some kind of amendment to that consent agreement to limit the number of mobile homes?
Yeah, so that would be a conversation for someone, myself and someone else. Meaning legal counsel.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was
so-
assuming, but
I'd be happy to have conversations.
I think it'd be worth entertaining.
I think Mr. Furlong would have to agree to.
Yeah,
So I have the notes, I have everything written down, I'll update you guys next month.
thank you, Ryan.
All right, so what do we do with Mr. Poland's application here?
That's the next step.
Yeah, so essentially, we'll do finding of facts next month. But essentially now it's a motion for approval or denial. And with any set conditions that you want to place. He already has his DOT entrance permit. Has everything else set up that he needs through us. But it would just be a motion for approval or denial with any other conditions that you wanted to place.
Do we have to do a motion to accept the application as complete first?
Yeah, typically there's a motion to accept.
Yeah, because it's a catch-22 of him needing a conditional approval from you folks in order to get the license. You need to counter that with a conditional approval based on, once he gets his conditional approval from you, we're getting in our record the copy of the state license.
So this would be an accept, not approved.
We have to start by
And I'm
accepting
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
as complete.
So if we do that, I can walk you through the motion, the next motion.
Yeah.
So move.
Well, the only thing is what about the changes that we talked about that, because it isn't technically complete, like there's some things that just need to be added, right? Like the abutters, the list of abutters,
Sure, yeah.
7, 8. I mean, do we, since we've already kind of talked about it, can we just go back in the notes and do that versus?
I'll just submit it for public record. So when we do the final minutes next month,
Mhm.
there will be an attachment that shows the list of abutters.
Okay.
And you guys can motion to approve those minutes.
But the
next
rest
month.
of it will be completed too, like 8, it didn't indicate the number of butters, total cost for mailing, we
Yeah.
had.
Correct. Anything that wasn't, but then on the last page, he submitted the information, it just didn't check.
Yeah,
boxes.
let's even get that.
But a lot of those are in A too, because like it's about sediment control, which, there's no construction happening, so.
Shannon's point though, not be complete.
Yeah.
Absolutely, gotcha. So when this is submitted for minutes next month, this whole packet will be, and then the additional information you requested. So I had written that down as you were talking about it.
Okay, great. So I'll make, sorry, I'm gonna override yours, Dave.
Sorry.
Just to make sure we're clear. I'll make the motion to accept the application as complete with the understanding that the additional items that we've discussed are completed.
A second.
All those in favor? It's a vote.
Yeah. So to Paula's point, it would be, so because he doesn't have his license from the state yet, again, we're gonna catch 22, suggested, contingency on it would be, or condition, I should say, would be that he receives a license from the state, before, operating the business.
So we give him a conditional approval.
Essentially, yeah, if that's your motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the request with the conditional approval from the state. Is that acceptable? Is that verbiage acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay,
To
Second.
accept.
Yeah.
You said-
or approve. We've already done the accept.
Okay, now beyond that, all right, very good.
Second,
You have a second?
yeah, second,
Rebecca, okay. All those in favor? Vote.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to town. Good luck.
Going on to 420 Pharma, adult use store.
Bob Clark, 420 Pharma, and we had approved this project a couple of years ago and we didn't get it done. So now we're back and we're ready to move ahead with it, so. It's basically a little bit bigger than the building that we looked at before, but not substantially so, and it's going in the same location. Basically, it will be, the ramp will be flush with the front of the building. I think you've got a map there that shows all of that stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Brian, this would be our 4th retail.
No, so each retail is allowed one adult use and one medicinal license, store per parcel. So technically there could be 8 stores, in total. So right now we have Eclipse on, near 5 Corners. They are in process of building both. We have High Rollers just built their adult use, and they already had medicinal, and then 420 Pharma already has medical, and this is their adult use. So we technically have one more license available, of which they could do both.
On the same person.
Correct.
So 420 also already has what?
They already have a medical.
Okay, and when did you get that?
Well, we were the first and only legal grower here in town for years, so it's been 8 or 10 years. since we started.
Okay,
And to expand on what Bob said, he did have the approval for this, I believe, 3 years ago, but in our ordinances, they expire after 2 years.
Oh,
So we have to come back
all
here.
right.
And, you know, I don't know if the plan is the same or not. I was not here at that time. But yes, he does have a site plan in here showing the location of everything, his current store, the new store, and any other parking.
All right, let's go through the application then. Page 1, questions 1 to 5. Looks good. 6 to 9.
Run into the same thing here.
Yeah.
I got you.
you gonna do that verbiage again, Shannon?
Yep, 7, up to 7 and 8. Thank you.
And then 9 and 10 look complete.
What about 14? There's no
Okay.
yes or no mark anywhere.
So there is a portion of the property in the back that I believe is in the 100-year floodplain. But no shoreline, he's further away from the river in the back that I don't believe he technically has shoreland or wetland. But he does have some 100-year floodplain in the back. The way he's referencing here,
It's not up where his buildings are.
yeah, no, it's nowhere up there. If you look at the 100-year floodplain map online, none of his buildings are located within that. But even if you're not located within it, the bottom of your foundation still has to be at least 1 foot above the high water mark.
So, maybe we mark that one should be marked as a yes, because technically it is, and then retain that note. And indicate that, would that make
I'm not
sense?
sure that's accurate, because we had to go back to the bank and we had a survey done from Sawyer's Bridge all the way back to our property and make sure the building was above the 100-year flood plain. So
But there is a portion of the parcel
The
itself.
property.
that shows that graphically on the map. I think if it was an issue and we had a survey done, I think that probably.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
because it references property and not building in that question, so.
it doesn't affect approval at all. It's just saying, like in the last approval, it's saying, the question doesn't ask, are you within shoreline, are you within flood zone? It asks, is there any portion of your property whatsoever that is, right? And I believe that there are some parts of it in the back of your parcel, but it's way off
Like
of this,
that,
yeah.
that property line, looks like that property was built up at some time, and the property line goes right along the break, so if you
Yeah.
walked out the back where the survey lines are, it drops down, 6 or 8 feet there in places,
Yeah,
so, but
Absolutely.
if it's not an issue, it's not an issue.
not an issue.
It's not.
Yeah, essentially it follows the property line, but I don't have any way to overlay the property lines with the actual floodplain.
Yeah, no,
Like
that's
online, it doesn't actually have the parcels.
for technical purposes, though.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Um, 17. Equal. Page 11 through 17. Okay.
Yeah.
18. 19, 20, 21, 22.
Good to me, very thorough.
No running water or sewage in the building.
That's right.
They'll be utilizing the bathrooms. The other-
In the other building,
Is this gonna have a foundation under it?
Yes.
Yes, there's been some discussion around that. We came to an agreed foundation plan that's gonna be a part of this building permit package. So that's part of the building permit, making sure it's compliant with the applicable codes, which is the International Building Code. So yeah, we have a plan that's gonna be consisting of, I believe, insulated block with concrete in the middle, and then cross protection of sheet by foam.
Was it complete?
Brian, 24, where it's a commercial building, it doesn't require any state agency.
We checked with them and we were under the square footage for the fire marshal, is that what you were speaking of?
Well, yeah,
Yep, well, they,
but it
Ryan
says-
raised the issue and I sent them an email and then copied Ryan on the answer, said that they.
But it
basically-
says from any state agencies,
So I guess, yeah, I guess what you're referring to is Office of Cannabis Policy.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think the answer to that actually, yes, sorry, I looked this over, that was an oversight by me, but yes, it would be yes, that we did. You need a conditional use permit, we're in the same situation as before, you turn that into the state gives me a form to fill out, and then we're all good.
They've had an inspector on site and we've approved the location, they have improved the location. We were talking about putting it on the existing foundation there, but it couldn't share a common wall with the existing building. So they approved this plan and that's why we moved ahead with this.
Just to get up to date on, it's, what about grow? What about grow areas? I mean, what about growing marijuana? Where's the licensing stand on that? Because I don't know much about that.
So it really depends on the, well, why am I speaking? We have two people in cannabis here, hopefully I won't butcher it. Essentially, yeah, if your grow is so big, you have to get licensed to the state, it depends on the type that you're growing, and there's different regulations behind medical and adult use, and then there's also personal use. So you're allowed so many just for personal grow too, so it really depends on what you're referencing there.
And we have, what left after if we approve this, how many licenses do we have?
One that goes to-
Yeah, we have one more retail license.
But that would include growing, of course, obviously.
Well,
No, it does not include growing, okay.
no, yeah, growing, yeah.
I'll grow if we don't really wanted to.
I'm sorry.
We could all grow if we wanted.
Everyone was.
Also, you could turn on-
Within restriction. But we don't have any commercial.
We have a license to grow. We have a commercial.
You do.
Yeah, he has commercial license to grow, so he's beyond the, personal use
How
standard.
much land are you allowed to use with a commercial license? I mean,
We grow inside.
so I mean, give me an idea of size. I don't mean land.
Probably from me to you is what we're licensed to do.
Okay.
Are you the only one? in the cannabis
I don't know.
Is he the only one, Marie?
We have some use permits, so caregivers are use permit level, which doesn't go through the planning board. We don't have any manufacturing, we don't have any testing facilities that would come through planning board. And then certain size of growth, I believe it also comes through planning board.
And caregivers grow, but they don't have a storefront, so they're like selling.
Yeah, they can still sell to patients,
But
but
they're
yeah.
limited on the number of patients.
Good to know.
Again, if we butchered any of this, I can speak up.
Yeah.
I'm just
They're
trying to
not
speak.
they're not
to-
limited on the number of cases.
Okay,
Oh, they changed.
not anymore. You used to have to tie the patient to each plant.
To
you're
the
doing.
plant.
Yeah, but you don't have
You're
to.
only allowed so many plants per patient.
No.
Now you can grow.
Free for all. Free for all. Knew
This is
that.
a perfect example of why I say the party keeps moving with cannabis.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, so he also has on 23, he also has a scheduled timeline. He's ready to go.
So with the exception of 24, 23, and 25. That's great.
And the abutted properties.
Yeah.
So. So the motion for the application being complete. With the changes.
Make a motion to accept the application as complete with the changes discussed, 7, 8, and 14 and 24.
24.
Wonderful.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor? It's a vote.
Absolutely. So again, going back to conditions of approval would be, before operating, would be licensure through the state. And I think that would be about it. I mean, I'll take care of, through the code department, I take care of building permitting. I'll take care of certificate occupancy, stuff like that. He'll need all of that before the state will allow him to open. So I could, the only one I could really see, if you wanted to, would be the approval from the Office of Cannabis Policy.
And they have approved the location, I can get something in writing if you need.
Yeah, and then past that too, so perhaps an oversight on my part, was DOT approval for entrance.
We're gonna use the same entrance.
Yeah, use the same entrance. When you have a change of use though, and you add, you have to get another approval. The traffic count, I mean, probably won't be there for a study. I mean, it's not gonna be there, but essentially you just gotta get a stamp from the DOT. And they write me a letter. So if I could add another condition, it would be that the DOT approved the current entrance. Which again is just another part. It's like getting a driveway permit essentially. Which is required for any residential or commercial use. But because it's a state road, it's not approved through the town, it's approved through the state.
Just seems redundant since he already has a.
Correct.
Sell marijuana, I mean,
It is, but it isn't because they have certain criteria of requirements depending on how many cars come in and out in an hour on a daily basis type thing for how big it has. to be.
Even if you built an accessory dwelling unit. Gotta go to the DOT.
love government.
Yeah. That's what it
Now
is.
we need a conditional use.
I'm making a motion to approve the request on the conditions of state approval and DOT approval.
Second.
All those in favor? It's a vote. Okay,
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Thank you.
item 5.3, rezoning discussion of South Main Street.
Yeah, so. How I want to do this is essentially, I just want to give a little bit of background of where this is coming from. Our ordinance states that. What happened? Oh, there it is. All right, so, our ordinance states that, people can bring new items through petition as a citizen, planning board members can, or staff can. So essentially, I'm exercising this because I've heard from too many residents who look at 26 and they say, hey, I live on 11. I can't do what people on 26 can do. Why not? And I say, well, let me bring it to planning board. And I've heard it about 4 or 5 times, probably from 4 or 5 different property owners. So as a part of your packet, it's a zoning map. So over here, this yellow is 26. Is 26 and it's zoned highway commercial. Over here is 11. And that there is zoned rural. So essentially, I started looking into it and I thought, is this an idea worth bringing to the planning board? Because, if there are reasons, why not? I want to hear them. And this is just the start of a conversation. Essentially, what I'm looking for today is, absolutely not, which is fine. Or it's maybe, let's go have a conversation. Let's do a workshop. Let's have a joint meeting with the council or, not expecting it, but it could just be, yes, we love it. Let's send it to council. I'm not expecting that. Normally stuff like this takes time. All right. But let me explain the logic behind it. And that's part of your packet here. Essentially, I'm starting with the zoning map. In the back of 11, you'll see this green and kind of this dotted stuff. That's wetland. All right. And the slashes are shoreline zoning. So when you go on the flood hazard map, I mean, it ranges anywhere from 500 feet back to 1,500 feet back from the road. So that's something to keep in mind here because there are measures in place that say, hey, you can't build in the shoreline zone. We have a shoreline zoning overlay. So it's not like someone can do a commercial use slap in the middle of wetland or in shoreline zoning because we don't allow that, right? But as you get closer to town, we do have some flood zone, which is near the corner of Libby Road. I believe it's the last page of your packet here on this topic. You'll see the flood panel. So there's a lot of 100-year floodplain. So I guess I should explain. You have shoreline zoning, which is within 75 feet of a stream or 250 feet of a major river or pond, essentially, the ocean, stuff like that. And then you have resource protection, which kind of is that green stuff. And then you have 100-year floodplain. 100-year floodplain means that within the last 100 years, this area has flooded. Okay. In our ordinances, you cannot count that land as square footage. So let's say you needed 40,000 square feet to build. it doesn't count. So you would have to have 40,000 square feet of land outside the flood zone. If you do build in the flood zone, you have to bring it up above the flood. Essentially, a surveyor will come out and verify you're above the floodplain. All right, so that's how that works. So we do have some of that, but as you get closer out to 26, there's less and less of that. So I say that because I want to give a holistic view on this. If you go to the next part of your packet, which I'll pull up here, we have allowed uses. So all the way to the left is rural. Third to the right is highway commercial. So it does allow for more uses. So it's not downtown business zoning. It's not that flexible. But you know, it is more flexible than, let's say, rural residential. When you go down through this, essentially imagine 26. So we have a Hannaford, you're allowed gas stations. I think we have a ice cream place opening up. Cannabis would then be allowed. And various other uses as explained in the table. Yeah, Sugar Shack. Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. Now, the uses I've heard, there have been some people that say, hey, I want to do car sales. Right? And that's not allowed in rural, but it is allowed in highway commercial, because that's what you'd expect to see on the side of a highway. So I included the allowed uses for you so you'd be fully informed on what would change. In terms of the dimensional requirements, which would be the next part, there is no sewer. So it would be the same as rural, which is 40,000 square feet of land per principal use and 100 feet of frontage, which was changed a couple months ago by the planning board and the council. Where this is significant is, so when you look at the map again, we have sewer in town. Let me see if I can pull up that sewer map here. So all this orange here is our sewer, right? It's all downtown here where we are. And then by the time you get to the bridge where the train goes, it pretty much ends. It ends right there. But you see water keeps going, it's dotted blue. We have water all the way down 11. It actually goes past 5 corners to the, I believe there's our aquifer overlay where we get our water from. And I believe there's also a water source up here at the top of the standpipe. But essentially, you know, if you're on 11, you have water, but if you're on 26, you do not. Something I hear, and this is a part of the conversation I think still needs to happen, okay? So I don't want to speak for anyone, but I've heard over and over, every couple of years, we requote bringing sewer to 26, okay? And wanting sewer up there so people can do larger scale development. When you think about it from a planning perspective, which is the point of the planning board, the odds of us bringing sewer through a rural zone probably won't pay for itself, because the uses are limited mostly just to low density residential. Whereas highway commercial allows some uses where it might be worth having sewer. So essentially, you know, the sewer district, and again, I'm not speaking for them, I think they should be a part of this conversation, but they won't see the ROI, the return on investment of, you know, rural development. They might see it on highway commercial. Sewer can never get to 26, you know, it's pure speculation, but if we ever want the hope of it getting to 26, I mean, this would be one way to go. But we do, again, unlike 26, we have water supply, and unlike 26, we also, if you look at the 3-phase power map, we have 3-phase power going all the way down 11. That's very important, and maybe one of the reasons why 26 isn't getting the development we would like. And I have TJ nodding his head over here. I know, buddy, I know. If you look up here in Oxford, they brought it down to the casino, but they didn't bring it up 26. They brought it down from somewhere else, right? Because a place like a casino, I mean, that's the type of development that's going to want 3-phase. You have the McDonald's right here on the corner of 5 corners, right? And then you have the Hannaford. They also have a little stub out, and then we have some industrial uses down the road here that also use 3-phase power. It's crucial to industrial commercial development to have that. And if you don't, you're very limited on the types of uses you can have, or it's going to be very expensive to get power. And so that's another point thing about 11. We have the infrastructure essentially. Like we don't have sewer, 26 also doesn't have sewer, but we do have 3-phase power, and we do have water, right? So again, the more I thought about this, the more I thought it might make sense to bring this conversation to the planning board. In our conference, sorry, my mic keeps going up. In the comprehensive plan, it does state that we should constantly reconsider where industrial and commercial uses should be. Right, so it's in the comprehensive plan. I'm open to talking about other areas of town that you think should be rezoned. That's always something a planning board member can bring. It's just, I'm doing this, I'm bringing this based on, oh, come on, constituent feedback. Okay, that's what the basis of this is, through research. Had this not had three-phase power and water, and it wasn't a state-maintained road, I would probably have not brought it. Okay, but another important point there is the state-maintained road. Basically, we don't plow it. State plows it. So if we have a development go in somewhere in 11, we don't have to, it's basically not a higher priority for us, because, you know, the plows, they want to prioritize where they're going to plow, right? And every place has a different system. You know, like in Portland, it's probably a lot more extensive, right? But essentially they say, you know, there's this many people or this many businesses here. We prioritize that more than this back road over here, right? So another benefit to the town is we add to the tax base without adding nearly as many services. So I think that's the end of the packet here, except for just this floodplain here, which again shows it's pretty far off the road. But we do have it up here closer to town. Another option is to go from downtown business to residential to highway commercial, right? There's something you could phase it out how a lot of zoning is. It'd really be up to everyone here, but the floodplain in general, because of our ordinance that you can't count that towards square footage, is probably gonna stay the same. But you heard Mr. Clark say earlier, someone at some point put a bunch of fill on his parcel to get it out of the floodplain. That's still a possibility. What you do is you have your parcel, you go to the state and you say, how much farther do I have to go up? And the surveyor comes and says, you have to go 2 more feet up. And if you go on 11 and you're going out on South Main, look to the right, there's a new double one. Right off the corner of Highland Ave, on the corner of Riverside and 11. What they had to do was they had to have a surveyor come out, and they didn't have to go much further up. They went up and they poured their foundation. The surveyor came back and had to say, all right, yeah, it's above the floodplain, at least 1 foot. And then before certificate of occupancy, the surveyor had to write me a certificate of compliance. So there are steps in place that essentially says you can't build in that floodplain. Now, I don't want to mislead you in saying that 100-year floodplain there will never be developed, because that's not true. It can be, but it's pretty expensive, and normally for residential uses, it's not worth it. For this person's case, it just wasn't a lot to do, so it was worth it for them. But if you have a whole parcel, it's going to take quite a bit of fill to get you up to where you need to be. So I thought it'd be helpful for you to know the general process behind that. So I guess now that I've given all the reasonings here and what I'm seeing, I mean, what does the planning board think in terms of like the idea, not like the idea, or the sort of process you want to take moving forward?
I know that we had discussed like reviewing all of the zoning at one point, but one of the biggest concerns that was brought up, and this is when Alan was the CEO, is that the cost of even just notifying the abutters of being able to make those changes. So
Yeah.
that's one thing. I mean, I think it has to happen because we've had a lot of development since the zoning map was created, and, you know, I think there's opportunity there. My personal feeling is Route 11 is still quite a residential area, and I don't know that I would personally support.
I agree.
Yeah.
You went through a lot,
Yeah.
and it's fascinating, and your knowledge, your detailed knowledge is incredible. I appreciate it, because you got it all at the top of your head. We don't. If there's some way you could put this in writing, and so that, I mean, I didn't absorb everything he said, but I think I picked up the major points. But if we could get this in writing before our next meeting, then I would feel more comfortable about discussing it in detail. I mean, he gave us a lot. I want to see it in writing. Does that make sense?
I think it needs to be like a workshop or something.
Yeah, but
because
before
it's
the
so
workshop,
much.
I'd like to have something in writing. Maybe it's my age.
No, no, it's a wet line.
Sorry.
I mean, I just need to write, I'm a reader.
It is a lot. I try to give you diagrams as I was explaining, but there is a lot of other information.
Yeah.
So I'd be happy to detail out what I said if you guys want to bring it to a workshop and I can actually narrate it,
Maybe do it in bullet form.
Yeah.
bullet form.
Yeah.
Great.
Bullets are
Good
great.
feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah, great. You got it.
Don't make it a narrative.
that's extra work for you, but it really helped.
You want to make comment?
Yes. TJ Fair, I own a High Rollers up on 26. So Mr. Griffiths, I did just want to point out, the gentleman who was the interim town manager before Vic, his
Yep.
name's escaping me. I believe on his exit, he did write a letter to the town where he outlined his, I don't know, desire or his vision in developing the 26 corridor and how he really saw that as a corridor of opportunity, I think is the term that he coined. And if I may, I'd really like to share some of my personal experiences with developing on 26 and some of the challenges I've had to overcome. First and foremost, just talking about general utilities. So crazy enough, would you believe that there's no electricity on Route 26 between High Rollers, essentially the Oxford Town line on the north end of 26 to the Sugar Shack?
No electricity.
There's no electricity. There's telephone poles, there's wires, there's no electricity. Ask me how I know. Yeah. Because back in 2018, I essentially said, this is the parcel I got approved. I said, okay, we'll just hook up to the poles. And they said, no, there's no power here. I said, what do you mean? There's wires on the poles here. They said, that's not power. So I had to pay for 5 poles to bring the power south from Oxford. So I paid for it personally at $1,700 a pole plus the line on top of that. So I paid for 5 poles so far, and for anybody to develop south of me and get hooked up to my chain, essentially, they have to pay me for use of my poles, is what I've been informed to by CMP. So crazy enough, and I come off what's known as the Bridgeton feed north from the casino side. The Sugar Shack comes from a south feed. It comes south of 26, and then Lane Road has its own feed that ends at the end of Lane Road. So that's some of the challenges on the electrical side. Water side. So as you guys probably know, Oxford just built a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant, and it's only being used 30%. This is a discussion I have with Senator Rick Bennett quite frequently. So Oxford is very motivated to try to figure out how can we, put all these tax dollars to use here. We're only using 30%. The casino isn't pumping as much, wastewater in this plant. And their original plan, when Oxford was developing that sewer plan, was to bring the sewer all the way south from the casino to the Mechanic Falls town line. But it never made that far. It stops at the casino. So that is the closest source for sewer. And then you have water problems on top of that. Both everybody on my side, being the west side of Route 26, we have no water. I have a 503-foot drilled well, and I have barely half a gallon a minute. Sugar Shack is in the same boat. They have over 500-foot well. We have no water. So we can't even, water our lawns essentially there's no water on that side. So those are some of the challenges that future developers, obviously can see pretty easily as, public information is, hey, if I'm picking any of this farmland, to develop into commercial property, we got to overcome some very big hurdles. So I think it's something that, I'd love to see is the town really reinvesting in that spot.
Well, I remember 2010, the casino was voted in by the state of Maine. And I think one reason it passed is jobs, because we were in a deep recession. But I remember all the buzz was, oh yeah, 26 is just going to explode with commercial business. I remember John Hawley saying that. And obviously there are elements to that, but that was the word back then.
And that's around the time we rezoned 26 to highway commercial, somewhere around 2011.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. That was another thing I wanted to touch on. So being as a state road, as you guys had mentioned, it's very difficult to get curb cut permits. As I'll use the DOT engineer that came out, has been into my property probably 5 times. I said, what is the likelihood I could get a permit for another curb cut to enter any of these fields for future rates? He said, it's not going to happen.
Why?
He said, because the way the traffic studies are set up on the DOT side, So I've already applied for 2 widenings of my curb cut permit. So I am now at the legal maximum width of my curb cut. My driveway entrance is 64 feet. It's not that wide. And especially on a high-speed road like 26, 64 feet, you know, it feels very small, especially in the winter season with snow. And I cannot get another permit without a full engineer traffic study that they said is minimum $15,000 just to look at it. And then it goes into the engineering traffic studies for the proposed type of business. And this is something that Alan forced me to go through, is to look at, would you believe that dispensaries actually have a certain rubric in the traffic studies to how many cars come in and out of them? But I know this because we recently dove into this almost a year ago when my neighbors, Senator Rick Bennett, he wanted to explore opening a cafe just south of me on the same side of the road. You know, I had already brought the power down, we thought it would be a slam dunk really easily. And DOT said, no way, you know, your driveway curb cut is never gonna allow that. So pretty much you'd have to look at a previously existing curb cut, largely a tractor entrance off Route 26, would be the only entrance you could really use.
Unless he does the traffic study at $15,000.
Sorry, yeah, and then it's still not guaranteed that point. So that was another impediment.
What they also look at is visibility and speed limit. So, you know, what's the speed limit there? And then are there any turns and what your visibility is? So they take that into account in the studies. Yeah, so it is pretty difficult, especially in a 55-mile-per-hour zone.
Yeah.
As you found
I'll
out.
share some of that for you guys.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Vic.
So it wouldn't come as a surprise that Ryan and I chat often. And when Ryan brought this concept to me for a conversation a week or 2 ago.
Yeah.
A light bulb went off in my head. Damn, you're right. We should be doing this. The way from my seat, the way that I see all of this, if, and there's an important word, if you want to grow your town and grow your town's tax base. I mean, we're going through a revaluation right now. Obviously, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure, you know, the more businesses we bring in, even the more residential homes we bring in. Yes, there's cost of services on that as well. But if you're going to grow the tax base, that's really how you're going to do it. And to have the state road access that we have on 121, 24, 11, 26, you know, in a way, we're quite fortunate. And Route 11, as Ryan was explaining to me, has both water and three-phase power. You're 2/3 of the way home. I have had a couple of conversations with Nick over at the sanitary department. In his, he talked about the casino being built. Well, I have in my office, Nick said he actually gave me a copy of it. I have in my office when the casino was being built, there was excitement in this town, I guess, at that point in time, about running water and sewer out to 26 to capture the 26 corridor and the casino excitement. Well, back then, I think it was $4 or $5 million. And when I had a conversation with Nick late last fall, you know, he had done an estimate where it was like $7 or $8 million. And I think Ryan's had a recent conversation with him, and the number just keeps going up.
11 million.
And so, you know, you can build it and hope that they will come. I wish this was the field of dreams. If you spend $11 million to run sewer out to 26, will they be there tomorrow? We don't know. So it seems to me doing the Route 11 avenue inches your way, as assuming over time there is some progress with some commercial business out on Route 11. It seems to me that over time, the closer and closer you will get to that Route 26 intersection, and then a far easier ability to have sewer. I've spoken to Jake at the water department. Water is the simplest of the three, even on 26. And certainly three-phase power
is a huge part of this conversation. But if we're ever going to do it, it was Mitch Berkowitz.
That's his thing.
And so if we were ever going to develop Mitch's vision of Route 26, I think honestly, it isn't, unless somebody knows something I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow morning. And I think it's going to take time. And I think that if the town wants to set itself up for growth in the future, using the Route 11 corridor as an opportunity to grow the town and as an opportunity to get the services out to Five Corners that we all would like to have, I think it makes good sense. I mean, our job is to kind of set the frameworking for this and let the capital world that we live in, have its say. And it seems to me it would be quite wise to develop the Route 11 corridor. So I fully support Ryan's concept, and I just wanted to verbalize that to you. Thank you.
'87 Stan Piper and Cannon Falls, Paulus Stotts. While I understand that, I also understand that we have a comprehensive plan. And I understand that the people on that board on that comprehensive plan were very, very precise about where they wanted to see development, where they didn't. And while I feel growth is good for our town, I also don't feel that we as individuals, unless we do it collectively, ask the people if they want to change Route 11 from what they deemed that they wanted in 2011 without their input.
I 110% agree with you there, Paula. No offense to Ryan or Vic, but they're not residents of Mechanic Falls,
And-
right? And I'm
But
not.
I
saying this
understand completely,
offensively.
and I'm actually gonna back exactly what Paula said.
Yeah.
Public engagement in this is super crucial, and I saw this to the start of the process. And actually like what you said, looking at all the zoning. And so I just wanted to let you guys know, I fully support that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So, and Waterhouse Brook runs, and if any of you've had the luxury the last couple of days of taking a ride down Route 11 towards 26, you'll notice how much of Route 11 is underwater.
oh yeah, I grew up on Route 11.
Yeah.
Right, I know the majority of the families that live on that, and I see that being a big problem.
Yeah.
If they found out that that's something that we were looking to pursuing. I personally support development on 26. I understand the need to be able to get the utilities there. I think from a town perspective, it would still make sense to invest in bringing it down 11, but to change the zone is, I think we would get a lot of backlash from the town.
And the other thing we need to consider is we've got on Lewiston Road, the zoning should be reconsidered for change down towards the Poland line on 121 or Lewiston Road, whatever you want to call it here, because parts of that right now are currently rural that have a lot of acreage that could be developed.
And I'm pulling up the zoning map to support your point here. So essentially the town office, I believe is, let's see where it's right here where my mouse is on, you can see that. This right here is Lewiston Street Gateway, which is special commercial. It's a mixture of residential, commercial, industrial. And then across the street is residential. So this could be an opportunity, or even out to here for a different type of zoning. But in your packets is the zoning chart that shows you the allowed uses. But I do agree also with what Shannon said earlier, was looking at the town as a whole. If this kicks off that process, then great, but I do agree though that public engagement is going to be super important. Because they're the communities that leave their citizens behind, just make angry citizens. And I've been a part of that before.
I was gonna say, look at Auburn right now.
But if I hear what Vic has said and,
There.
Mrs. Thayer, it almost seems like the shortest route to accomplish this is coming from Oxford.
Yes.
Because, all the land up to Parent Lumber and beyond, which is undeveloped land for the most part. You know, it's closer to the Oxford.
Yeah, and I would highly encourage, that maybe our illustrious town manager have a conversation with Oxford if our current sanitary district is okay with us pursuing other avenues and do as Poland did. Poland uses us for water for a certain degree, but then they go to Auburn for the other end of the world.
Your town manager has no problem speaking with anybody about anything. It's a part of the town mechanic laws.
Put some
But I do
context there.
think, you guys need to do your due diligence first.
So,
Yeah, to put this in context to your point here, so three-phase power is right here at the casino. You have a couple more, well, maybe a mile or two, and then you, right here is where QJ's business is. So again, he wants the thread here. But you know, that would be an approach to go from top down, because right there is where you have water, sewer, and three-phase power. So that coming down is definitely a shorter distance to this upper part.
now Oxford, if I'm, PJ, you may know this, isn't Oxford on well, not town water?
The casino and stuff.
Yeah. They just have sanitation and three-phase power.
Sanitation and three-phase power, it's all mixed up, because we have water up to 5 corners, but not sewer. They have sewer down at the casino, but not water, all right?
So in sewer, that, like, say we had that conversation with Oxford, like, there'd basically in essence be some kind of like rental agreement that would go along with that, or would we consider owning? Like, how would that work? Like, would we?
I think how it works with our water currently is essentially residents of Poland just pay the Mechanic Falls Water District for their water. Because it's not, the town doesn't actually own the water district, it's kind of quasi-governmental, it's its own separate.
But what about the piping? Like, if something goes wrong with the piping, who pays for
The
the cost?
Mechanic Falls Water Department does.
Yeah, the water district, yes. They
Because it's its own separate.
it's not a taxpayer, it's a water ratepayer. So, you know, if they have to replace a bunch, or if they extend it, so one of the things about sewer is if you just extend it down to 26, that cost is shared among people who pay into the sewage department, right? So if no one hooks up to it, essentially everyone else is footing that bill.
And the three-phase power, if there was enough interest by businesses, technically they could split the cost, because we saw that in one of the solar projects, right? Where we had a couple businesses come together and say, well, split the cost to bring that three-phase.
Well,
power.
and Mr. Coolidge, with the Sugar Shack is having this similar issue that there is having with the lovely DOT. So I
Well, he's
recommended to the two of them, maybe they should collaborate and see if the state would allow them to collaborate, and then maybe that would cut their costs down for this traffic study. And that's the other thing with Route 11, we can change it till the cows come home. But if the DOT deems that it's not gonna allow driveways to open, then it's not gonna happen. It doesn't matter what we zone it as.
Yeah, both the site plan applications we had today have to go to the DOT in order to get an entrance. Permission for entrance permits, and if you have a large enough development like a Hannaford, they have to do full traffic studies. So you have to hire someone, tens of thousands of dollars to count traffic and make sure that you have the proper entrances and exits to handle that.
And that's why we lost the Hannaford the first time around, was because there wasn't a casino, there wasn't any thoughts of the casino. And so the DOT looked at Hannaford's and said, we want you to pay for this traffic study, and then whatever it says, we want you to pay for putting it in. And Gray was in the process of putting a light down there because of their school issue on 26. So it was a much more attractive and appealing place for them to be economically. So.
Thank you.
So where do we go from here? I hear two things, comprehensive plan needs to be redone.
So that's a comprehensive plan. I try to read through it for this, and Paula is right. It has a zoning map. And there's other parts of it that say Mechanic Falls should also always reconsider where new commercial and industrial development happens. The comprehensive plan governs what we do. We can't do anything contrary to it. So I don't want to do that. If there's something in there that says we can't, we can't. we're due for a redo in about a year. We have to redo it, essentially, and you have to do it every so often, right? So this might be something where we have the conversation, but ultimately it's tabled until then. But if there is a part of the comprehensive plan and we have these workshops and we engage the citizens and they agree, and we can find where it says in the comprehensive plan that, hey, look for new avenues for commercial and industrial development, we kind of have to go ahead, right? But Paula is right, we do have to consider the comprehensive plan. And we can't just rezone willy-nilly if it's against the comprehensive plan. So, I mean, with that said, that kind of gives us some homework to look at that. But where I kind of hung my hat on this was a section that said we should always reconsider where new commercial and industrial development can be. And I think when everyone comes out of a comprehensive plan, they're all fired up and ready to go because citizens are involved in it, everyone in government's involved in it. Around that time, the casino went in, so I'm sure people were just fired up, ready to go to make changes. But I guess that hopefully that helps explain to you the comprehensive plan portion of it.
Whenever it happened, I was on the committee that rewrote the last comprehensive plan. And I really think it's important to get a more diverse mix of citizens, business, developers, residential. Even though I was on it, I wasn't impressed with the membership as far as their background and what they can bring to the table. So that's something to think about. Really work hard on getting the right members. We can't do anything until then.
We need somebody other than AvCog.
Right, exactly.
And
We have the AvCog guy here.
yeah, so this is a
But
part
then
of another process that will happen, I think, not this fiscal year, which is July 1st, but I think the one after. I mean, I'm looking over at Vic, I'm not sure, that budget's not made. But we're not sure, but essentially we're waiting. LD 2003 is coming in full force July 1st, which will change what we can and can't put in our comprehensive plan. So we got to see that out, and then you got to budget for it, and there's all sorts of stuff that has to happen between now and then.
And it's more and more, if I may, it's more and more mainstream for communities to actually hire a consultant to lead the comprehensive plan effort.
Oh, we had one.
Along with the committee.
AvCog was our consultant and it was, in my opinion, a waste of $35,000.
You know, I don't want to get personal here, but that was not good leadership.
Yeah.
We need somebody dynamic to keep us moving. And it wasn't fun. It's gotta be.
So are there any other questions? that
Yeah,
somebody may-
getting back to this whole thing on rezoning of South Main Street. Right now, the only action item we've come up with is for Brian to do a bullet list
Right.
of reasons.
Right.
I'm not sure what we'll do with that, since we're talking about needing to do the comprehensive plan again before we do this, but.
I think what we can do is just educate ourselves. Ryan brought up some big issues on 11 and 26, and I just want to have that in my head a little better. And it will help us approach the comprehensive plan.
I think that at a minimum, there's still opportunity to look at zoning that's not gonna be significant changes. I mean, obviously, we still need to notify the general public, but a perfect example, like where I live, I'm on Elm Street.
Mhm.
I'm considered, what is it, agricultural or whatever. And I'm really technically general res, if you kind of look at the definition of it, like that's where I should be, but I'm not. And there's been houses developed beyond me. You know, my property is never gonna be used for agricultural purposes. I had 1 acre, that's my lot. You know, and the other houses going down from here are similar. So it's like little bits and pieces like that, in addition to off from, when we talked to Alan before, off from even Route 11, there's some small housing developments that are in, you know, their land doesn't meet the zone, the zone that it's listed as. So it's just little things like that we could probably look at to start with. And then, you know, kind of just chip away at it until the comprehensive plan is developed, and then maybe look at the larger scale zoning changes that might need to happen.
So I'm not following you. What would you chip away at?
Like just a little, like that outliers, because all of this, any changes to the zones that we're gonna do right is gonna cost us money, right? So if we can chip away a little bit at a time in doing this, because we have to notify all the abutters, you know, and
Yeah.
want to get that feedback, like, it, I think it would help us in the fact that we're minimizing the expense that we're doing if we're doing it a little bit at a time, but we're also not being inundated with a ton of taxpayer feedback for changes that we might be looking to implement all at once.
If we change allowed use in a zone, so let's say we took rural and said, right now, we're gonna allow this new use in rural. We have to send a piece of mail to every single person in rural, and then to the abutting parcels of the rural zone. So if we want to rezone all of 11, essentially, we got to notify every single person that has frontage and the abutters to that, whatever we're rezoning. So it would be quite a few mailings, and under our ordinances, we have to do that certified mail, which is $8.10 a mailing.
On top of the fact, I'm gonna say this as well, because I brought it up before and it didn't get very far. The process to do that and understand who the abutters are is extremely manual, because we don't have an electronic system to be able to take a look at each of, you know, the lots. So many other towns around us, Poland has a systemic way to be able to look at a zone. They can identify how many, you know, pieces of property fall into that zone. They can identify the map, you know, map and tax lots, all of that. We don't have that. And it would be a lot easier and a lot less time if we do start approaching these zoning changes, if we could look at the option to systemically make the changes. And from my understanding, the company that's handling making the updates to our ordinances and those things can also handle that type of work, is my understanding.
Good idea.
Yeah, I'd have
That's
to,
going to
I'd have
cost.
to ask. I was the one who engaged them for those services. I kind of picked it up halfway through the process.
Yeah.
That's in the CEO update later, but yeah.
Okay, Shannon, you have any, or you, Rebecca, any comments?
I'm absorbing everything right now. Are you gonna talk to Oxford? Was that something that?
I would be willing, but at this point, it's almost like I think you all need to do your homework first.
I think that's.
Yeah.
And then, because I don't wanna have a conversation with Adam in Oxford and say something that may be true tomorrow, but not true a month from now.
Just
Right.
kidding.
But
Yeah.
26 is an already deemed commercial zone.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter to that aspect of Route 11. It's two different animals. 26 has been deemed commercial.
I would still like for the town to do a little bit more homework, so I can have a more intelligent conversation.
I don't blame, I think,
Agreed.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, I guess this wasn't meant to be run with.
Right.
But this is how this started, was constituent feedback of people calling me and saying, why can't I do this?
So
thing?"
it's not the problem, where do we go from here?
Yeah, so that's up to you. If we want to pursue any sort of rezoning, we can we can do workshops on a certain directive. We can direct it right at 11. We can direct it at more areas if you want to, where all of us can bring different parts of town that we see. We can table it. We can create an ad hoc committee. We can create, which would involve citizens and business owners. We can create a subcommittee, which is a permanent version of the ad hoc committee. Ad hoc's meant to be, here's your purpose, and once your purpose is done, your committee's dissolved, right? Subcommittee is, you're a permanent committee, and we call in whenever we need you. So that'd be more like a land use committee. And then from there, we could just drop 11 and reconsider other areas, but I would still like for 11 to be a part of the conversation personally, but if it's something, Shannon, I think you said it best, I don't live here. I don't take that offensively at all. I truly don't. And I don't want to be someone sitting in an office, just making the decisions. I want to bring this to everyone here, get constituent feedback and make sure that it's a shared community vision. So I know I'm not directly answering, but I'm trying to give you options on, there is a comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan doesn't allow us technically to rezone. I don't think there's any parts about residentially. We can make adjustments, but in terms of completely rezoning now, it only gives us leeway to look at industrial and commercial opportunity from my studying of it.
In the
Someone,
downtown area.
In the downtown area? Okay,
That's where they wanted to grow. in the downtown area.
Could we just maybe make our next session a workshop to talk about how we're gonna tactically approach this?
because if we get into too much of this conversation,
We're going
we're,
down like all these.
we're comprehensive planning. Which is not time for that, right? So this is why it was a one issue topic. Because I thought I had leeway from the comprehensive plan. But again, it's something where if we want to start getting into the issue, I think it just kind of kills the idea. If we're gonna wait for the comprehensive plan for now, it says we're gonna wait for the comprehensive planning committee. And really, I don't see a point in this meeting. To discuss all of the zoning, because again, that's a process that's gonna happen with the land use portion of the comprehensive plan. So we would just be redoing it, and there's no guarantee we would all be on that. You know, everyone here wouldn't be on the land use portion of the comprehensive plan.
However, we kind of do have to look at that a little bit and have those conversations, because from a budgeting perspective, recognizing all of the abutters that we would have to notify, right? For any significant zoning changes. I don't know how that looks from a budgeting perspective, but I'm assuming we need to build that in if we wanted to do something like that, would we not?
Yes, it would have to, well, the comprehensive plan is a budget in and of itself, tens of thousands. And then from there, you know, you would probably look ahead from the comprehensive plan, the issues you came up with and the ideas. And then you would say, all right, it's gonna cost us this much, and then you would fix that in your budget over the next few years. I mean, the budget person's sitting over there in that chair, but I'm kind of spewing, but I'm thinking that's how the process would work. We would identify it through the comprehensive plan. We would then plan for it over time, because you're not gonna implement everything in the comprehensive plan in 6 months. You just can't do it.
If we just have a discussion in some form, bullet points and so forth, on the topic you brought up. That's the kind of thing that would be a discussion point for the comprehensive plan. So you have 5 planning board members who've talked about it, sorted it out, we have recommendations. Do you, members of the comprehensive plan committee, have any comments? Do you agree? You want to do something different? I don't like starting as a comprehensive plan without some prep work. This is a major issue you just brought up. It's a big deal. So we should have some kind of a recommendation, hash it out. Alternatives as we go to the comprehensive plan. That would make it easier for people who help us with the comprehensive plan who have very little background.
And it shouldn't be just Route 11, it should be 26, it should be Pleasant Street.
That was my
Gateway,
next point.
Yeah, I mean-
Gateway.
This is a lot of planning stuff is applications like we've had today and so forth. This is a big deal he's bringing up, and we need to do something about it before the comprehensive plan.
Great, so I think, does that answer your question? It seems like the consensus is rezoning in general, workshop. Everyone brings their ideas, really. I mean, that's part of the planning board, but I can identify other zones if we're gonna open it up. But that's honestly what I was looking for was, are we pursuing this or is this starting a different conversation? So if that answers it better, I mean, I'll get the bullet points for infrastructure.
Yeah,
Because we really should build around infrastructure and planning, right? Like what we want to plan for.
Right.
And then I can identify, like, for example, I was in a rural parcel the other day and talking to some landowners over Dispute, actually. And I noticed it was rural zoning before I went out there, and I made the comment like, you have water here. And I said, yeah, we have water and sewer. And I thought, oh, there's a rural parcel that has water and sewer? Like, why are you rural?
Yeah.
You know, so that I have other ideas, but this was just one that I had just received like one phone call a week for like 4 weeks in a row. And I thought, okay, yeah, this is clearly something constituent wise I should bring.
All right, so you're gonna do the bullet test. I think we're gonna move on, and we're not gonna get these other 2 items.
Yes, yeah, so, all right, feedback taken. I will tack on a workshop to the next planning board meeting.
Ordinance review. Mixed use.
Yes, so I did do some work. Ultimately, before I take the next step of embracing the idea a little bit closer, I came up with a couple of ways to word this, not run by legal yet. I would want legal to give me the language, but it gives you the idea. So I have the actual ordinance on the first page, and the second page, I came up with a couple of suggestions. Once I have more of a directive, I hope this gives you more of an idea of what we're trying to accomplish with this ordinance. From there, I would like to start contacting business owners essentially in the downtown and other areas that have commercial uses to make sure that, does this make sense to you? Type of thing, because I know the last time that change was trying to made, it was a different change, but it wasn't taken well, and I'd rather get onto the front end of it. So my first idea or suggestion is to add on to the end of the ordinance to say, essentially, more than one principal use may be permitted on a lot in coordinates with the following minimum standards, and then adding on in red, so long as at least one use on the lot is considered a commercial use. That sentence right there, I think, is what was missing the first time through this review of this ordinance, because this ordinance was meant to make some density. I'm going to scroll down to it so public can also see what I'm talking about, and anyone tuning in. But essentially, this was meant to be an ordinance to allow for mixed use at higher density. And it even says it right in the beginning of the ordinance, in order to encourage a mix of uses and new infill development. So I believe that this sentence accomplishes what it was meant to accomplish, meaning keeping the commercial uses there or adding them in these zones and allowing for higher density in return. So I think that sentence right there corrects, quote unquote, corrects the ordinance and gives it the intent it originally met. The next, in addition, language about change of use. So I thought, essentially zoning, you got to think, how can this be misconstrued and abused, right? Because that's the point. People hire consultants to help them do that. I mean, they truly do, and they're good at their jobs, and they're meant to look at ordinances and say, does it really say that? So I thought, what would keep someone from adding a bunch of commercial uses or one, and then exploiting this for a bunch of density, and then doing a change of use and getting rid of the commercial use? Or taking a very high dense parcel downtown that's grandfathered for, let's say, 3 or 4 units and changing the only commercial use to a residential. I thought, how do I prevent that, but also not make it rule or law or ordinance that you have to have a commercial use no matter what? And I came up with this solution. When a structure within these zones has a change of use to no longer include a commercial use, the structure must meet the dimensional requirements as detailed in table 2 and is no longer allowed the density bonus as described in this section. So it's not saying you converted this to commercial, it always has to be commercial. What it's saying is, you're welcome to not be commercial anymore. It's just you no longer get the super awesome density bonus. You have to go back to the regular land use table. You're still allowed to do it. But again, this incentivizes the commercial growth that this ordinance was originally intended to do. So those were my 2 sort of ideas or suggestions. And then I wanted to come to you with these and say, hey, does this make sense? Does this, now that I put it this way, and is there any loopholes here or anything else you want to add to this ordinance? Or should I pursue, business owner engagement and legal definition here for the next meeting? That's it.
So if they don't, I like the way this is written, first of all. I think you did a great job considering we just weren't coming up with anything last week.
And that was probably just the complexity of the ordinance, right? But hopefully these changes, what we realize what was missing from the ordinance.
So, but for the number 2 piece, when you say it must meet the dimensional requirements as detailed on table 2, so if we take a look at those, if they don't, then you're saying that they're just automatically they still have to retain the commercial.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now, it's nothing saying if they get rid of the commercial use, they could just drop that use in general. So let's say someone, this is something that Walter brought up, let's say someone turns their living room into a bake shop, right? Can they go back? Under this, they can, because they can't have it as a separate unit, right? Like another apartment, but they can still just turn back to the living room, right? It's just they're at the same density as they were before. So table 2 is the table referenced in the section that says you need this much square footage per use, this much road frontage per use. But you can see without that last sentence in the number 1 suggestion, what this ordinance was actually allowing people. It never said you had to have a commercial use. It says it's only to incentivize it, right? We have to spell it out. So at the very least, I'd like to go with number 1 for legal language, but number 2 is sort of just a suggestion. See what you think.
That would be an addition.
It would be in a, yeah, it would be like a second part to it, yeah,
Yeah,
subsection. I'm not sure how the attorney would want to place it, but however they wanted to.
So where do we want to go from here?
So if you like it, I will, for next month, I'm basically just gonna make a couple of phone calls for people. Because again, you know, at first this was, you know, you have to have a commercial use no matter what. You can't change out of it, right? And that's what kind of caused people to be upset about it. And understandably, you know, it's a good idea, but it rubs some people wrong. I'd like to call people and say, hey, here's what we're doing. I just want to basically pick your brain in your situation. Does this cause you any harm? Because I don't want to cause anyone harm through ordinances. I think we just talked about public engagement. I want to keep that.
Yeah.
So essentially between now and the next meeting, I do that, and then I go right into our attorney and I say, all right, it seems to have good approval. Can we, you know, can you give me some language for this? And then I'll bring the language to you the next meeting. And then we could motion to approve or amend or decline it. But that would essentially be the next step. I just wanted to bring this to you to make sure I was on track.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
All right, whole business, no updates from CEO.
Yes, so, updates from CEO. So right now, I guess the first point I wanted to make was permitting. Permitting is about just as strong as last year. So we have a lot of new homes going in. Next part was junkyards. So I sent out a lot of letters, like I told you last month. Some I haven't gotten a hold of, some I have, but essentially people are on timelines right now, depending on the severity of the situation. If it's not very severe, they have 30 days, you know, if it's more severe, they have 60. There was one that was so severe, I had to give them all summer. You know, it just kind of depends on the severity, but ultimately, people understand where the rules are now with unregistered vehicles, junkyards. I had someone just bring me another one the other day, so I'm really hoping a lot of this gets cleaned up. But I do have one that said they'll be done by June 3rd, so I'm hoping to have an update that it's all done next month. In terms of that, let's see. Next part of this, the mill, I think I owe an update on that. I did meet with the mason. So essentially the last part of the consent agreement they haven't met was fixing up that back building. They have to essentially make it safe, and they're going to, they are, that part of that is the masonry. Essentially, you know, you can see it. It looks like a building from a nuclear apocalypse right now, but there is a mason on it. I met with the mason and the property owner. The mason, you'll see a jig in the middle of it right now. Mason's working. So we do have progress. I think I have some other pursuits, but ultimately, you know, that's where we're at with the mill. If I had any other updates, you know, from last month, the shoreline zoning ordinance. So that's a process we're gonna have to start. We are overdue for our shoreline ordinance. There are some adjustments made by the state that we have to comply with. So I have engaged APCOG to at least help us with that. And they helped us with the last one. And it's a part of our services, you know, we pay a yearly fee to be a member, you know, they help us out with stuff at a good cost. So I will be bringing you this summer some updates to shoreline, what we have to change or what we can change, and we will all be reviewing that. So I just wanted to update you on that. I was kind of waiting until we got through some other planning board items. As you saw tonight's agenda, led us right up to the wire. And I, quite frankly, with inspection season starting up, I don't have time. But I will, and hopefully by the end of the year, we can have a new shoreline zoning ordinance and put into place. Yeah, those are the updates I have for you.
Next meeting, you want to change the date?
Yeah, I'd like to. If possible, my daughter's course concert is that day, so. And your granddaughter's.
Talking about a week later or
A week's fine by me.
14th?
Yeah, I don't know what to do with them schedules, but that or even the Tuesday, which we typically have them more, right? Tuesday of that.
Six, like the night before or the following week.
Tuesday night?
Whatever works for everybody.
So the 7th is the next one, right? So you talking about June 6th then?
Yep, either the 6th, the 14th, whatever.
How about everybody else? So the 6th of June,
6 hour review, Shannon?
everybody here, good with that?
Yeah.
Same time.
Yeah, 6 o'clock on the 6th of June. I will update that. I have it here as June 7th, but I will notify for June 6th and let everyone know we are moving.
6/6 at 6 p.m.
Oh, no, we can't do that.
666, I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, we adjourn?
Yeah, no more business, right? So it's 6:49.
7.
47.
7
Yeah, 47, yeah. All those in favor of adjourning?
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya. I go back to work. Are you really? Yep. Oh, man.
Thank you.
Hello, me. I work at 40 Lane. Right in my housing. Do you? Where I live.
What are they
I
gonna
work at
do?
LLB. I'm actually a job coach, so I listen to phone calls all day. And how great they are. Except today, I don't know. I got the cranky reps last night. Yeah. I already told you that, Dan, Dorothy.
I think you have a point.
Simmer down, Maddie. Simmer down, Maddie. It's gonna be fine. Remember that the state in 2011 and they had these different projects going on after. Flowers. Nightmare. There's a whole week of training, right on site, right in the big building. Yeah, mechanic and the baby, and now I said.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I don't think so. There's like 2 Boynton families that I don't think we're related at all. Most of my family comes from Poland. Wyndham.
Projections that we can. You know, things, that
There's
saving money, but it just won't be.
uh
I think.
Ezra is like a nephew that's pretty well known around. He's an older kid. He's not a kid anymore.
You see like manufacturing.
I don't think Rodney does anything like that. Yeah, Olivia, she's doing like a mentor program. To see if there'd be something she'd be interested in. She's doing automotive. She was not quite out here. And I was like, no, I couldn't remember how to pronounce it, but I was like, how do you spell that? D-O-Y-N, first like. Yeah.
General, to like lose street, right?
I definitely did that like every other Friday.
When we drive through, and he was talking about that.
No, I don't think so. I don't think. No, because she's like, I love it. Yeah. You're okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's kind of my neighbor. Yeah, it is. Like your neighbor. I'm around the corner there. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, I will.
Anyways.
And I
Appreciate you coming here. I think you have a lot to contribute.
Yeah. Everybody moves in south of me, you just pay for over $7,000 to bring the power. It's not just buying new poles to break down, they pay for all.
Yeah, they have to pay a percentage, right? It's like 14% or something like that.
Yeah.
And then their polls and then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah, they essentially said that, you know, I can either pay $1,700 upfront and then I get it paid back and I mean, tags on my line. And I was like, oh, gosh, about to spend it for someone else, you know?
yeah, exactly.